Hello and welcome to the May subscription tasting video where I'm going to taste the 3 coffees that we're sending out to all our coffee subscribers in the first Wednesday of May 2021. Now, if you don't know what a coffee subscription is, you basically sign up to subscribe to our coffees and we will send out coffees that I pick out that I really like at a given moment. We send it out every first Wednesday of the month, and if you subscribe to 1 bag, you will get 1 type of coffee. If you subscribe to 3 bags, you will get 3 types of coffee, and if you can subscribe to all up to 6 bags. That means you'll get 2 bags of each. So today we're going to taste the coffees we're sending out in May, and this is a coffee that is quite familiar to all our followers and fans. It's from Finca Tamana, but it's the kind of current fresh harvest that was harvested late July last year. And of course we take quite a long time to dry these coffees on the farm to make sure that the shelf life is extended as a green coffee. So this coffee actually arrived at the beginning of the year, which means it has been in our storage for a few months, but we had some old coffees we needed to sell out first, and then now is the time to release these coffees. I have to say that I have been working very closely with this farmer, Elias Roa, who owns Finca Tamana, and actually in 2015 I bought a piece of land of this farm that is next doors to Finca Tamana now. So we separated out a piece of land that is now our own farm, where I'm doing farming myself, trying to do organic farming, where we make compost, or I make compost, we put it out, we plant trees in a different way than what's conventional in Colombia. But that's a whole different project that we can talk about on a later stage. But our farm name is Finca El Suelo, and you can follow us on Instagram and on our webpage. And sometimes we release some videos as well on YouTube about this farm. But we're here to talk about Finca Tamana. Finca Tamana is a 56-hectare coffee farm now in Huila in Colombia. And I started working with Elias in 2012, and he actually bought this farm in 2011. But he has been farming since, I think, the 80s in a different area in Huila called Acevedo. So Elias is an experienced coffee farmer, but when he acquired this piece of land, Finca Tamana, he kind of took over a farm that had been slightly abandoned. There were coffee trees there, but there was just a little small farmhouse and a very, very tiny mill. And he had 1 kind of parabolic dryer to dry the coffees. So when I visited him, and I knew him from a little bit from the past, and I figured maybe we should try to work together in order to transform his farm into becoming a consistent production place for high quality coffees. And I wanted to do this because the farm is quite big, so that means when you do a lot of work together with the farmer, we could actually buy more volume of coffee than the average kind of 10 to 20 bags, which is the kind of average production per farm in a harvest in Colombia. Most farms in Colombia are around 2 hectares, I think, and they have around 500,000 farmers, so they have plenty of potential, of course, and plenty of tasty coffees. And Finca Tamana might not be the very, very best coffee you can get from Colombia, I understand that. That's because the altitude is not the highest, and we're kind of working slowly in order to progress the quality. So far we have been able to encourage Elias to build more dryers. We're drying the coffee in shade, which means we can extend the shelf life of the green coffee so that it tastes fresh for up to a year. A lot of people say that Colombian coffees tend to fade fast. That means the green coffee will lose its quality and you get kind of woody flavors in the cup instead of fruity flavors. But I don't think the beans know in which political boundary it's being grown, so this is of course something to do with the production techniques. So we figured over time that when we dry the coffee slowly under shade and we store them in grain pro bags in the storage in a cool place before shipping, we can extend the shelf life, and some of these coffees can taste fresh for up to 2, almost 3 years actually. And if you don't believe me, we have witnesses. We have done cuppings with professional roasters who weren't able to taste the difference between 2-year-old harvest and current harvest. So that's pretty amazing actually, what you can do with these drying techniques and storage techniques. Now most Colombian farmers, they traditionally were growing Caturra variety. Caturra is a kind of small Bourbon variety. It yields quite a lot of cherries and it has pretty good quality. But it really depends on where it's grown and the altitude and so on. But the problem with this plant is that it gets a lot of attacks from leaf rust, which means it will lose its leaves. Leaf rust is a fungus that kind of attacks the trees. The plant will lose its leaves, and although it can have cherries on the plant, those cherries aren't able to get a lot of nutrients because, you know, plants make sugars with their leaves. Also, it kind of affects the harvest in a couple of years because the next year, instead of getting a lot of new cherries, you get a lot of new leaves because the plant needs to survive. So this is a problem. So that's why the Colombian Coffee Federation has been developing new varieties, hybrid varieties called Castillo and Variedad Colombia, that are basically a crossing between Hybrido de Timor, the Timor hybrid, which is kind of a Robusta and Arabica crossing, and then that became a plant that looks like Arabica, and then they have crossed Caturra with the hybrid from Timor and created Castillo and Variedad Colombia that is more resistant against leaf rust and produces well and also has pretty good quality. And there's a lot of critique against these varieties, but in my experience, if you harvest them at the right point, they can taste really delicious. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we taste it. So that's kind of the more traditional varieties that are grown in Colombia at the moment. I think 60% now in Colombia is Castillo variety or Variedad Colombia. But we are also planting new, or should I say old varieties with Elias on his farm to see if we can improve the quality of the cups. So we have planted SL28, we have planted pink, yellow and red Bourbons. We have planted some Typicas, there are some Pacamaras from memory, Sudan Rumé, Java. There are plenty of different varieties now, and not all of them are in production, but some of them are. So that's kind of the work we've done with Elias. Of course, we have helped him improve the wet mill. He has a huge wet mill now in stainless steel fermentation tanks. He uses far less water to wash the coffees. We have stopped using herbicides on the farm, so we're doing manual weeding there. I say we, but he's the one doing it. But that has really shown good results, I think, in the quality. And I think every year we see a slight increase in quality. Of course, there can be some fluctuations. But I think at least last year's main harvest tastes really good at the moment. So I'm really happy about that. And I think the biggest kind of difference is the cleanliness and the sweetness in the coffee. And sometimes you get these really nice fruit flavors as well. Now we have future plans for the farm as well. But we can maybe talk about that in a separate video when I go to the farm. I might take you around to show you how it looks like. Okay, let's taste this month's coffees. And I've set up a cupping. If you don't know how to do that, we have a brewing guide on YouTube and our website that shows you how to set up a coffee tasting like this. And if you only have one coffee, you might want to just set up any other coffee. It can be a supermarket coffee or any other coffee on the table to have something to compare with. Now the first coffee we're sending out is the kind of standard coffee on the farm. It's actually a blend of Caturra and Variedad Colombia. And the reason why we blended this is because there was not a lot of Caturra, and we normally separate each lot by picking, so which means one picking becomes one lot. One picking can be a daily production. And then we cut through all of these lots, and then we kind of put them together into bigger lots because we need to mill them in a dry mill, and having really, really small quantities is not very logistically sound. So we need to kind of build bigger lots before we send it to the production site where they mill and kind of process the coffee for export. So this is a blend of Caturra and Variedad Colombia, and for me they taste quite similar on the farm, so I'm not so worried about blending these two. I mean, when you taste them side by side blind, you can't really pick them out, which is which actually. So they're very, very similar in flavor. And one of my favorite coffees on this farm, it's kind of my go-to coffees, is, Variedad Colombia, the one that grows behind the house under shade. That is always a spectacular lot. And we try to always keep that separate, but now it's been producing not a lot, so we have to blend that in here as well. But this coffee has a lot of kind of caramel sweetness. In Colombia they say panela, which is basically a caramelized sugarcane juice. And this, I think, is a very good description for this coffee. Very sweet, it has a very creamy texture. Caramel. a little bit of chocolate, just really sweet, nice, balanced, delicious coffee. You might get a little herbal aftertaste, like a little greenish bell pepper flavor. I don't really mind that, but it's not so strong in this particular lot that we're sending out. I think the real good kind of flavors here are these kind of caramel flavors. So the first coffee we're sending out to all our 1 bag, and of course if you subscribe to 4 bags or more, you'll get 2 bags of this, is the Variedad Colombia and Caturra varieties from Finca Tamana. The second coffee is very interesting. It's a bit more intense, meaning it has kind of a little bit bigger body or bigger mouthfeel, or more intense mouthfeel. Maybe slight more bitterness, but not in a negative way. And for me it has this kind of marzipan flavor that's kind of mixed with the caramel and a little herbalness. This is the Castillo on the farm, and although Elias grows 2 different types of Castillo on the farm, or actually 3 now. He has Castillo Naranjal, the kind of general Castillo, and then he has Castillo Tambo. And these are just hybrids that are developed in different areas in Colombia, and they have kind of adapted to different climates. So when we have planted this on the farm, we can actually taste that there is a slight difference between the 3 Castillos that he has there. But this is the general Castillo, which for me this year was really nice, super sweet as well, quite marzipan-y, a little bit of caramel, and maybe a little bit more of this kind of baking chocolate, this dark chocolate. Whereas if you go to the Caturra and Variedad Colombia, that's a little bit more kind of sugary. Yeah, so very cool contrast between the 2. So the second coffee we're sending out is Castillo variety from Finca Tamana. Castillo is the hybrid where they have mixed Caturra with Hybrido de Timor and created a more resistant variety that doesn't get attacked by leaf rust and produces well, and that's a very good kind of stable, consistent producer for Finca Tamana. I have to say that the Variedad Colombia is kind of the early version of the Castillo, so they're quite similar genetically. Now the third coffee we're going to taste is a Bourbon variety. Ooh, really nice. Now Bourbon variety is kind of the parent of Caturra. Caturra is kind of a mutation of Bourbon, but this is a mix between a pink and a red Bourbon, which means when you pick the cherries when they're ripe, on some of the plants the cherries are pink, and on other plants the cherries are red when they're ripe. And that's kind of how you distinguish a pink from a red Bourbon. Now there is a yellow Bourbon on the farm as well, but not as much, so this is the majority of it, is the pink and red Bourbon. This is a plant that is also susceptible to leaf rust, so it's quite uncommon to grow these days in Colombia, although some farmers still have them around from the old days, and some progressive farmers like Elias is planting Bourbon just to see if the quality can be better, and in my opinion, probably one of the best coffees on the farm. So we can say that it works, but the risk here is that he might lose all of his production to leaf rust, because if the trees are attacked, that means almost no production. So we kind of have to be a little careful and have a little bit of Castillo, a little bit of Variedad Colombia, a little bit of Bourbon, to kind of have a little bit more diversity on the farm. And that also means we can get different flavors, which I really like. This coffee is very fruity. Has kind of a little bit more of a black tea thing with fruit. If you know, when you go to the tea store and you buy this kind of teas that have a little bit fruit mixed into them. Very delicious, quite juicy, I think. These subtle floral flavors as well. But for me, it's kind of a little bit more fruity than the other 2. Let's go back to the other 2. Yeah, when I go back and forth, you really taste this kind of caramel flavor here. And more fruit flavor in the Bourbon. And now I definitely get the kind of marzipan flavor in the Castillo. So that's the third coffee we're sending out, the pink and red Bourbon from Elias. And this is kind of the second or third harvest of this coffee. And it's not a lot of volume, so it's mainly for our subscribers. Cool. If you like this coffee, please feel free to comment below. If you dislike them as well, of course. But if you want to subscribe to our coffees, go to our website and you can sign up to a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 bag subscription. We send them out every first Wednesday of the month. You can pause or stop your subscription at any time. So there's no kind of binding times here. And it's a pretty good offer. I think you get slightly discounted coffee, and I pick out all the coffees we send out, and sometimes we have these kind of small lots like the Bourbon that we aren't able to sell in the store because we send most of it out to our subscribers. So I think you might enjoy some of those coffees. Cool. Thank you for watching. I hope I will be back to Colombia very soon because I need to go to work on my farm, Finca El Suelo there, and I also need to visit Elias. So hopefully in this August or September I'll be able to go. Just need to make sure I have a vaccine first for the COVID. But hopefully then I can make a little video and take you around the farm, and maybe we can taste some coffee there as well. That would be very, very cool. Until then, I hope you enjoyed the video and see you soon.